Hi everyone, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all some of the books that I've read recently, and I think it's pretty safe to say which ones I read for college and which ones I read for my own enjoyment. The first book I'm going to be talking about is Lifelike by J. Kristoff. I'm going to read the summary to you all of this book because I have no idea how to summarize this book. I tend to have difficulty summarizing fantasy and sci-fi books depending on the premise, and this one is one of those. On a floating junkyard beneath a radiation sky, a deadly secret lies buried in the scrap. Eve isn't looking for secrets. She's too busy looking over her shoulder. The robot gladiator she just spent 6 months building has been reduced to a smoking wreck, and the only thing keeping her grandpa from the grave was the fistful of credits she just lost to the bookies. To top it off, she's discovered she can destroy electronics with the power of her mind, and the Puritanical Brotherhood are building a coffin her size. If she's ever had a worse day, Eve can't remember it. But when Eve discovers the ruins of an android boy named Ezekiel in the scrap pile she calls home, her entire world comes crashing down. With her best friend Lemon Fresh and her robotic conscience Cricket in tow, she and Ezekiel will trek across deserts of irradiated glass, infiltrate towering megacities, and scour the graveyard of humanity's greatest folly to save the ones Eve loves, and learn the dark secrets of her past, even if those secrets were better off staying buried. I rated this book 3 stars. Honestly, I had a lot of fun reading it. It wasn't the best book out there, but it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was easily listened to because I picked this up as an audiobook. Truly, it was so smooth to get through that I couldn't rate it any lower than 3 stars, even though it wasn't particularly amazing or unique. I think one of the primary reasons why I really enjoyed this book is because I enjoyed J. Kristoff's humor. I think his witty dialogue is fun. So of course, I was really into this because we have that trademark dialogue that is very Kristoff. In general though, this story wasn't special. I thought it had a few nice moments of surprise, some plot twists that I wasn't exactly anticipating, but that once they came, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not surprised in the grand scheme of things, but in the moment I had that little moment of like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting that. But otherwise, the characters here weren't anything new, especially nothing new from J. Kristoff. I felt like the characters were pretty familiar to me, pretty common for what J. Kristoff likes to write. So because of that, yeah, it was fun, but really wasn't anything that I'm going to be thinking about too much. I am planning to pick up the sequel, but it's not high on my list of priorities. I'm pretty sure this is a trilogy, so I'll just take my time making my way through the rest of it because, if anything, what I'm really hoping for is that this is a villain origin story. This is giving me hints that that's what's gonna happen in this trilogy, and I'm like, please let this be a villain origin story. Please, because I love those. I think they're very fun, and I liked there were hints here. There were hints here that that's what was happening, that what we're getting is seeing Eve become a bad person, and I'm like, yes. So we'll see. I'm not sure. Otherwise, yeah, pick this up if you want to, but I don't think you're missing out on much if you don't pick it up, especially if you've read books by J. Kristoff before. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett. In this book, we follow our main character Simone, who transfers to a new school because in her old school, her HIV positive status was revealed against her will, and that led to a lot of bullying and negative interactions with people, so she's kind of trying to distance herself from that. But when she starts her new school, she starts developing this crush and eventually a relationship with this boy that turns kind of sour when someone starts blackmailing her and telling her that if she doesn't break up with that boy, that they're going to reveal her status, her HIV status. So Simone has to navigate deciding if she's going to come out with her HIV status or if she's going to keep it to herself and risk both her relationship and the whole school at large finding out her secret. I rated this book 4.5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. I honestly find very, very few flaws with this book. I think it was so well written and so important to read. Like, seriously, it's both an excellent novel while at the same time packing so much information about HIV that I'm like, everyone needs to read this, honestly. If you have not read it, you need to pick it up and you need to read it. I think one of the things that made this story especially special is the fact that it takes a very sex positive stance on HIV. A lot of the book is spent on Simone trying to find out how to have safe sex, how she can go about living a normal life even while being HIV positive, which I think is brilliant. Honestly, I think it's brilliant. It's exactly the kind of books about HIV that we need out there. So it was great because we had her being very curious about having safe sex. We also had her exploring her body, exploring and navigating how to be in a relationship with someone. Honestly, brilliant, amazing. We love to see it. On top of that, we also have Simone exploring her sexuality. She's in this struggle where she doesn't know if she's bisexual, she doesn't know if she's straight, and she keeps playing at being straight because the feedback that she gets from her queer friends and from other queer people is basically that she's not bisexual enough, she's not queer enough, so she starts to think, maybe I'm not queer, maybe I'm just making this up, maybe if it were reality, I would not be interested at all. I'm just interested in celebrities, so what does that matter? And I thought that was an excellent, excellent theme to explore in this book because I think it's so important to talk about both how bisexuality is erased and how there's this kind of like gatekeeping over what makes you bisexual, what means that you're not bisexual enough or whatever. And I love that this book kind of focused in on that and kind of exploded that whole concept. I'm like, yes, yes, this is what we love to see. And finally, I love this book because of the romance between Simone and Miles. The two of them were really, really, really cute. I thought the relationship moved a bit too quickly in the beginning of the novel, but as the story progressed, I thought their relationship developed quite nicely, and I liked the tension and the communication and the interactions between them. I thought they were, I don't know, they just were so wholesome and so cute, so I enjoyed them. All in all, please go check out this book. It's so worth the read. Do not hesitate to pick it up. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. So this book is basically a retelling or reimagining of 1001 Nights. So in this world, the Caliph of Khorasan takes a new bride each night and murders her before the dawn rises. And so we follow our main character Shurzad, whose best friend is murdered by the Caliph, and so she wants to get revenge. But once she's chosen to be the wife of Khalid, the Caliph of Khorasan, she starts learning more about him and starts to think that maybe the decisions he's making of murdering these young women is not entirely in his control. So I rated this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, but let's see if I can put 2 of my brain cells together to actually explain why I enjoyed it so much. I honestly barely took notes while reading this book, and now I'm suffering the consequences of that decision. But truly, I was just so in the moment while I was listening to the audiobook of this book that I couldn't think of anything except being like, I love this book so much and I am such trash for it. Like, literally, those are the only 2 thoughts that I could form while I was listening. I was like, I'm trash and I love this. So the main reason why I love this book is the characters. This book made me love our main character Shurzad. It made me love Khalid. It made me love Despina, who ends up being one of the friends of Shurzad. It made me love Jalal, who is also another friend, I guess, that Shurzad makes. Honestly, they were fucking great. I loved them with the entirety of my being, and that was part of what made this book so enjoyable. I felt like even though I could have used a bit more development with all of the characters, I still felt like I knew them. I felt like I understood who they were as people, the decisions they were making, and the interactions and relationships between each other. I felt like we did get some good insight into that, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I was so into this book. The other reason I love this though is because I'm trash for one of the tropes that is used in this book. Basically, I'm like, give me a tortured love interest who is doing bad things for a good reason, and I'm sold. I'm one. You have me. Like, it's done. It's done. You don't have to do too much else for me to be like, I love him with my entire heart and soul. So I think that skewed things in the favor of this book, because Khalid was exactly that. He was like a teddy bear on the inside who had to do bad things, and I'm just like, my heart. What else can I say? What else can I say? I'm trash. So honestly, I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel of this. I'm pretty sure this is a duology, so when I read the sequel, it will be the end. But I hope the sequel is really good, because I had a lot of fun listening to this audiobook, and I really want to love the conclusion of this book. We will see what happens. The last book I'm going to be talking about is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. In this book, we follow our main character, Jadriel, who is a trans brujo who is trying to be accepted into his community of brujex. The problem is that because he's trans, his community doesn't think that he will be able to successfully go through the rite of passage of his quinces, which will elevate him to the state of brujo. So Jadriel decides to do that ritual on his own. And on top of that, he decides to summon the spirit of his dead cousin. What happens though is that he ends up summoning Julian Diaz, the resident bad boy of his school. So now Jadriel has to figure out not only who has killed Julian, but also if that has any connection with the death of his cousin. I rated this book 4 stars. Once again, we'll see if I can put any 2 brain cells, if I can figure out at least even one brain cell to describe why I love this book so much. I read it for class, so like I could break down some of the stuff in here, like in themes and stuff like that, but that's not really the vibe I'm trying to go for in this video, in my channel in general. So how do I talk about this book? Honestly, the main reason why I'm so into this book is because Jadriel and Julian are adorable as hell. They are just so cute. They were adorable. I loved their relationship. I thought that even though this novel took place in like such a short amount of time, if a week transpired in the plot of the story, that's a lot. I don't think even a week happened through it. But in that short amount of time, I felt like the author really packed in some scenes that made you feel like Jadriel and Julian were genuinely getting to know each other, were genuinely bonding. So I thought that was beautiful, amazing, stunning, brilliant. Honestly, I was sold 100% on their relationship, which I know that some readers are not fully sold. They think it happens too quickly. They think it's not developed enough. But personally, I thought the scenes in here were developed with enough attention to detail and attention to the dynamic between Jadriel and Julian for that relationship to be believable, even though it happens through such a short amount of time. If I have a big criticism about this book, it would be the villain. The villain was kind of obvious from the start, and on top of that, he was exaggerated in his badness. It was a bit too on the nose, a bit too roughly developed. So that was my biggest qualm with this, because I wanted it to be less on the nose, honestly. I just wanted it to have a bit more nuance. Like, I could understand the concept behind it, and I think I understand what the intent was and who the villain was, but ultimately I felt like the reveal, the build up to the reveal could have been done a bit better. That's it. That's the thing. But overall, I thought this was an excellent read. I really liked how it explored the theme of tradition and how Jadriel really wants to be part of his brujex community, but they don't want to make space for him. They are so fixed in the traditions that they don't want to make room for him. They don't want to bend things so that it can make a space for Jadriel to be in that community. So I really enjoyed that exploration of how like queer people don't always just want to break spaces and break old traditions, but they do want those traditions to make space for them to not be so rigid that they can't be a part of it or that they feel entirely excluded from it. So it was great. It was great. It was great. I would recommend picking it up. I had a lot of fun. I think everyone should read it, honestly. Just read it. Have a good time. And if all else fails, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, ultimately, I would definitely recommend picking it up. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it has some depth in it that makes it also interesting and engaging as a read. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts were. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to follow me on any of my social media, I will leave the links to that down below in the description. But for now, see you next time.